All right, we're going to tackle our next few chapters in Resist and see if Samira makes it out alive, if she's able to rescue her mother, or what happens. The two chapters that we're going to read today are called The Wasp's Sting and Samira's Army. So here we go, The Wasp's Sting. Samira trailed the prisoners and their Nazi guards through the streets of Beirut. How could she stop the Nazi soldiers from shooting her mother and the other prisoners? She turned the problem over in her mind again and again. She had the knife the British glider soldier had given her. She had Serrano too, and he was brave, braver than she was, but he was small. Samira had been the one to save him from the Nazis. Where was the French resistance? Where were the Allied soldiers? The people of Beirut? Was there no one who would help her? The city gave ways to fields and farmhouses, and Samira followed behind a hedgerow out of sight of the soldiers and the prisoners. She wished she could catch her mother's attention, let her know she was here at least. But Kenza Zaidain kept her eyes on the ground, just like the rest of the prisoners. The soldiers steered the prisoners towards a small grove of trees, and Samira knew she was running out of time. She had to think of something. She had to do something. I'll attack them with my knife if I have to, Samira thought. She knew that would be suicide. She would be shot before she would do any real damage. But she would try. She was not going to let her mother and the others die without doing something. It was harder to stay hidden in the woods. The trees were old and tall, like giant pillars that held up a roof of green leaves, and there were wide open spaces between them. Sunlight trickled down here and there, occasionally breaking through with a bright shaft, like a ray of light through a stained-glass window. The leaves formed a thin, soft brown carpet that muffled Samara's footsteps. The tingles Samira got walking through the quiet, beautiful grove reminded her of the way she felt in the garden of the Grand Mosque in Paris. But this magical place was about to be defiled by a horrible atrocity, unless Samira could do something about it. Samira waited until she thought she was out of sight of the guards and sprinted from the protection of one big tree to the next. She leaned back against the new tree, breathing heavily, but frozen, as she heard a familiar voice call out to her. "No, love of my life, you should not be here," her mother cried. Samira gasped. Her mother had seen her. She had called out to her in Arabic, guessing that the Nazis would not understand what she was saying. But had the guards seen her too? Samira could not peek around the tree for fear that they would find her. Instead, she held her breath, listening for the sound of German boots, for her mother's voice. "Run, Samira, run far, far away from this place," her mother called in Arabic. "You should not be here to see this, and if they find you, they will kill you too. Run." One of the Nazis barked at my mother to be quiet, and Samira heard her mother cry out in pain. Samira peeked out from behind the tree. One of the soldiers had struck her mother in the back with the butt of his rifle, and she had staggered a few steps away, trying to stay on her feet. No! Samira's heart broke. Her mother had taken a chance calling out to her and had drawn attention to herself and one of the wasps that had stung her. But they were planned to do far worse. The soldiers marched the prisoner to a clearing in the middle of the woods, where half a dozen old dirty shovels rested against a trunk of a tree. Nearby there were two freshly dug and recovered plots of earth, each about 5 meters by 5 meters wide. "Take the shovels and dig a hole as big as the others," one of the Nazis told the prisoners in French. "Why?" asked one of the prisoners. He was a young boy. "Just do as you're told," the Nazi said. Samira felt like she was falling, like she had stepped off the top of the Beirut Cathedral and was dropping like a stone. She swayed on her feet and had to put a hand out to brace herself, or she would have fallen for real. The boy may not have understood what was happening, but Samira did. The Nazis were making the prisoners dig their own grave before they shot them. In the next chapter is Samira's army. Samira leaned against the tree at her back, her mind reeling. Her mother was digging her own grave. The horror of it threatened to swallow her whole. She had until her mother and the others were finished digging to figure something out, or this glade in the wood would be their final resting place, and probably hers too. Samira wiped the tear from her eye, and as she blinked her focus back, she saw something strange at the bottom of a tree a few meters away. It was a green helmet. Samira frowned. What was a lone helmet doing all the way out here in the woods, so far from anything? Slowly and dully, she put the pieces together. The Nazis wore gray helmets, not green ones. This one had a different shape from theirs, too. It was an Allied soldier's helmet. Samira's heart leaped, but then reality set in. No Allied soldier was hiding anywhere nearby. He would have picked up his helmet and worn it. But where had it come from? And what had happened to the soldier? An idea, a recent memory began to tickle the back of Samira's brain, and her eyes went up into the tree trunk. Up, 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 until she saw the parachute caught in the tree. And dangling from it was another Rupert. Butterflies flittered in Samira's chest, and as a plan began to form, she put Serrano on the ground and whispered, Stay here, Serrano. Good dog." And without a moment's more hesitation, she ran for Rupert's tree. The dummy was not making battle sounds the way that the other Rupert had been. Samira worried that it meant it wasn't like the other one, that it did different things. Maybe it did nothing at all. But Rupert was her last best hope right now. Samira grabbed a low branch and swung her legs up. Through the trees she saw her mother, a shovel in her hand and already a foot lower in the ground. Looking straight at Samira, Kenza Zaidane's eyes were wide, and she shook her head once, quickly, so that Samira would see, but the guards would not. Samira's mother did not understand, and Samira had no time to explain. A Nazi guard walked over and gestured for Samira's mother to get back to work. He turned to look in the direction that Samira's mother had began looking, but Samira was already gone, climbing up and around the backside of the tree. She wished she could comfort her mother, to let her mother know that she had a plan, but Samira wasn't even sure it would work. But she had to try. Higher and higher, Samira climbed until she came face to face with the dummy. This one had Rupert stenciled across his chest, too. She decided to call him Rupert, too. "All right, Rupert, too," she whispered. "Why are you not singing?" Samira slid her hands over Rupert's jacket, being careful not to dislodge him from the tree or activate anything explosive inside of him. The end of a red wire peeked out from inside Rupert's collar, and Samira felt a little flicker of hope. Down below, the prisoners were still digging, but she did not know how much time she had. She quickly unbuttoned Rupert's jacket, revealing a small black satchel on his chest. It was the thing that made the sound effects. Samira opened the satchel and saw a place inside where a wire could have been attached, but it was not attached. If she connected the wire, would it play the battle sounds? Or would connecting the wire make Rupert too explode? Samira was no engineer. All she knew was that there was a disconnected wire in a place where one could be attached. And she needed Rupert too, and his virtual army. Samira held her breath and connected the wire. Bang, kaboom, rat-a-tat-tat-tat. Rupert too erupted in an explosion of sound, and Samira was so surprised she nearly lost her grip. Rupert too had not exploded for real, though. He was doing his other job, tricking the Nazis into thinking there was a battle raging nearby. And it was working. Samira watched through the leaves as the Nazi soldiers and the prisoners all ducked. wondering where the fighting had come from all of a sudden. One of the soldiers barked for the prisoners to keep digging and stayed to guard them with the machine gun. The other guard, the one with the rifle, went off to investigate. The rifleman could not see Samira yet, and he sneaked from a tree to tree as he went, afraid there was a real battle going on nearby. It had worked. Samira grinned from ear to ear. She had gotten one of the Nazi soldiers to leave the prisoners. But then the smile left Samira's face. Rupert, too, had done what he was supposed to do, lure one of the Nazi soldiers away. But that meant the Nazi soldier was coming right for her, and she was trapped up here in a tree.